affidavit, and also his response could also clarify that, so. And I don't know what the whole question was gonna be.
Well, and there's nothing in that statement. You wrote, it was provided to us on Monday, the day we started jury selection, we get this. That's the first time we had anything in writing from you. You don't say anything about.
That is not true.
And you're testifying, so.
You have a right to lead the witness, Your Honor.
Right, but you can't, you're making a statement of fact, and so.
Okay. You've never written anything down about this, have you?
About this incident?
Yes.
Yes, I completed a police incident report.
Where is it?
In our system, I'm assuming you have it with the trooper's investigative report?
It was never provided to us. Do you know why? We did a search warrant.
That's not my purview or responsibility, sir.
But in terms of you didn't do an expert report.
I did a police incident report,
But
yes.
you didn't do an expert report.
No.
And you, at no point in time in your incident report, did you ever talk about tasers, deadly force if it's taken away from you?
No.
So you at least, and then you didn't tell the officer, or excuse me, the trooper, when he showed up at Grand Rapids Police Department to talk to you about it. You never told him about that.
No.
Just skipped your mind?
It didn't seem, I didn't talk about it.
He asked you specifically, do you have any policies about the sound of a taser? And you said no.
We don't have a specific policy about it, no.
But that would be a big thing. We don't have a specific policy or training. He said policy or training, and your response was no. How does that not seem to be a legitimate response?
It didn't seem to be.
Okay. Tasers are different. You didn't say specifically a taser yesterday. You said disarmable weapon.
Correct.
Okay. Is an OC spray a weapon?
Potentially, yes.
So if a person's disarmed of OC spray, if a person disarms an officer of OC spray, that's deadly force.
No.
Well, isn't a taser and OC spray the same thing under Grand Rapids policy?
It is not.
I'd like to go to Exhibit 32, Your Honor. Can you put it up on the board, please? Excuse me, 30. This is Exhibit 30. So you have a policy. You have a separate policy for firearms, correct?
We do.
It's its kind of own entity. So you have a firearm, that's kind of the highest. You agree that firearms are deadly force, right?
Yes.
No question.
Yes.
So then you have intermediate control weapons. That would be the next step down, if you will.
Yes.
And then you have compliance control devices, correct?
We do.
That's kind of a three-tiered thing. Is that a fair assessment?
I would consider OC spray lesser than that tier, but yes.
OC spray lesser than what tier?
Then a taser or compliance, less lethal tactical weapons, specialty munitions.
Okay, well, clearly, okay, let's go impact weapon use. So we got impact weapon. Right?
You said Exhibit 32, but it says Exhibit 30.
I said, I corrected myself, I thought.
Oh, okay.
Exhibit 30, Your Honor.
And this is page.
This is the first page. This would be under 9.1, excuse me, 9.3.1.
Thank you.
So impact weapon use. The purpose of an impact weapon is to provide officers an effective control option when confronted by potentially violent subjects. So impact weapons provide control subjects by creating temporary motor dysfunction in impacted muscle groups. So an impact weapon would be your ASP.
Yes.
Could be a flashlight. I think that causes a flashlight, something you can hit somebody with.
Correct.
So that's an impact weapon, and you use it in situations where it's kind of a confronted by potentially violent subject. It's a little bit more higher level, if you will, because they're potentially violent. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Gonna go to 9.34, then you have aerosol restraints. That would be pepper spray, right?
Correct.
The definition of ASR is to provide members, being the police, safe and effective control option. Temporary control subjects will provide a degree of safety for both the officer and the subject. That's under Section E, correct?
Yes.
Right underneath that is electronic control devices, your taser.
Yes.
It's the exact same definitions as a OC spray, isn't it?
Yes.
So in your mind, you think it's different, but under Grand Rapids policy, OC spray and tasers are the exact same thing under definition.
In a definition, not in the use of force policy or under a force understanding.
Under what force understanding? This is your policy that
That's
gives
a-
the same definitions.
This is a definition policy that gives an example, not our use of force policy.
Okay. So where in the use of force policy is it differentiated, I guess?
In the levels of force options that are available to officers
So you're talking about the active aggression, active,
in that area, yes.
in that area. So in the policy, so let's go look at that then. Policies here. Okay, is this what you're talking about now, or exhibit 32 now, Your Honor?
That is a old use force policy, sir. That's, the bottom right date says 2017 on it.
Yep.
What Officer Schurr would have been expected to adhere to is 2021's policy revision.
But this is the one that was provided to us under, these are the training records provided to us. Exhibit 32 is the training records provided by GRPD for Officer Schurr. So you're saying we weren't provided the full records?
That's a training record, sir, not the policy. The updated policy should have been available to you. I don't have that.
So
I'm
what-
not- and that's not my purview.
You're the policy, you're the training person, you're the training.
Right, but that's not my responsibility for record release, I mean.
So there's some other policy out there that says, that'll say, tasers can be used in deadly force that will be able, the defense can put up on the thing.
I'm sorry, what?
There'll be another policy that the defense can put up there then, that says tasers are considered deadly force, like Grand Rapids Police policy.
No, sir, I was just pointing out that's a 2017 policy, 2021 is the latest that Officer Schurr would have been expected to adhere to.
Now we'll stay right here. We were talking about this 9-1.5. You brought this up in your testimony yesterday.
Yes,
This is one of the considerations, the totality of the circumstances that Grand Rapids Police consider.
yes, some of them, yes.
Some of them. When you're looking at it, and when you're looking at the totality of the circumstances, your opinion was it was okay for the defendant to chase after Patrick that day.
Yes,
Because this is, use of force. When you talk about totality of use of force, it's all uses of force. It's not just deadly force. It's force at the beginning, force at the end, force in between, right?
correct.
And it's got to be objectively reasonable for the entire time, right?
For the use of force duration, yes.
Okay. So that use of force, in terms of considering that it was a good idea to chase, let's look at right off the bat, the moment to chase. Patrick's bigger than him, right?
Yes,
There's two people. There's one in the car and Patrick.
correct.
Relative strength, we already know it, but this is before the chase is taken off. Patrick's stronger than him because, as you throw in your testimony, he lifted him off the ground.
He did.
So he's bigger, stronger, there's more than one purpose, and may have an access to a weapon, right?
Correct.
So on the first four things, the first top four things, if you will, all of them count against the defendant chasing after Patrick, correct?
It's factors, yes.
They're factors. So what are the good factors, I guess, in there that would that would allow for a chase.
It's also a compressed time constraint, his decision-making of deciding to pursue and then actually trying to physically restrain or arrest. Those are all happening in split-second decisions, not long drawn out,
Sure.
working through them.
Sure, but a reasonable officer at the time, you train officers to take all these things. I mean, you just don't have that up there for no reason. You don't have a policy for no reason, right?
Correct.
They're trained to take these into consideration.
They are.
And so part of the training would be say, hey, somebody's bigger, stronger, you got more people, may not be the best idea to go after somebody in those situations, right?
Potentially.
I'm gonna say, like, we can't put this on the board, because we're still trying to keep off the actual training stuff for the media. The jury will get this. Staying with Exhibit 32. This would be use of force policy changes from 2020. You recognize that?
I do.
And one of the policy changes was, well, maybe not a policy change, because it was a warning before shooting. That's one of the things that's listed there, correct?
Yeah, under number 3, it says require a warning before shooting. Then our MOP, which is our manual procedures, whenever reasonably possible, officers should provide verbal directives before deadly force is used.
And verbal directives before deadly force is used. You kind of said yesterday, well, that covers anything, like stop, or it doesn't have to be stop or I'll shoot. Stop is sufficient under your view.
We don't define exactly what a directive is, no, but stop could be construed, I would say can be construed as a directive, yes.
What's number 4 there?
Require that all alternatives be exhausted before shooting.
Okay.
Already, and then underneath it says already in manual procedures 9-1 under escalation and de-escalation of force.
So it says it's a kind of a change, but that's, according to that, you already had that, you're supposed to exhaust all alternatives before shooting, correct?
It says that as a use of force policy change, recommend yes.
So, under policy, you're supposed to try and exhaust all alternatives, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, I get it. Yesterday you said if somebody walks up, pulls a gun out, you don't have to try and do anything else. You got to respond with deadly force if you're met with immediate deadly force, right?
Yes.
But Grand Rapids Police teaches a number of different things in terms of use of force continuum, don't they?
I would say in use of force, we don't necessarily have a continuum, but
All
yes.
right. But in terms of use of force, pressure points, right?
Correct.
We're going to go through them. We have the mandibular angle. Okay, that would be the kind of right between the neck here. This is a pressure point, if you will.
Yes.
So you trade on these, on both sides, pressure points. You can get somebody like right here, correct?
Potentially, yes.
You jam it in, and that's a pain compliance guy. Is that a pain? Please tell us.
It's semantics the way you're describing it, but yes, it's more of a, you have to control the head, or so that way the person doesn't move away from your pressure. But yes, it's
There's
a
that.
pressure in and towards the top of their head, yes.
You have the hypoglossal?
Correct.
This is bad, I get.
Hypoglossal.
The hypoglossal is kind of grabbing them underneath the chin, like right underneath here, the jawline. Is that a fair?
Yes.
Okay, so you can grab them, manipulate them that way. That's a pressure point that you teach.
Yes.
You have infraorbital. I'm not going to do this to you, but that's kind of getting somebody from, you get them up under the nose and yank back on the nose.
Correct.
You have a jugular knot. Oh, excuse me. You have the combination of the hypoglossal and infraorbital, right?
Yes.
You have the two. You have a under the nose and under the chin to yank somebody backwards, right?
Correct.
You have the jugular notch. That's right here. Kind of. Is this correct right here?
Yes, in that region. Correct.
Because you got like a little, when you feel your bone comes together, you got a hole right there. That's taut.
Yes.
You have the brachial plexus. There's a muscle, your shoulder muscles. That's a pressure point right along the neck in this area. You can jam down on it, grab it.
Yeah, and it kind of feeds up to the side of your neck. Yes.
So that's a pressure point that once again, is that a pain compliance, or does that?
It can cause both, like a motor dysfunction or pain compliance.
Okay, but that's something you teach.
Yes.
The clavicle notch. Okay, that would be right in here. Is that like between you as a collarbone? Right
Mostly, yeah, roughly where your collarbone meets. By
So
your
there's like
shoulder.
a hole between where it's kind of there's a almost like a hole. You can press down on that, right? You can press down here. Is that fair?
Yes.
All right. So those are all pressure points that are taught.
Correct.
On top of that, then you have the takedown strikes and stuns, right?
Yes.
You have a brachial stun. It's like, okay, the brachial area, it's like a karate chop to the neck.
Can't chop. It's
Okay.
got to be a flat surface.
I'm sorry?
You can't, if a chop or punch would be considered a deadly force option because
Right.
of the risk of injury. It's a flat surface striking the side of your neck.
So like that, more that?
Or back of your hand or inside of your forearm, something like that.
Yeah, actually, a chop, people can collapse, get knocked out kind of from that, right?
It's potentially, yes.
Do you teach that all? I mean, in desperate situations, that like a chop is okay, or is it always flat?
I mean, potentially it could be an option if that's what, but we don't specifically train people to strike in the side of the neck as a deadly force option, no.
So we have a forearm strike. That's, I think we saw them on the training. I don't know if you're in here, the forearm strike where you're punching with your forearms, right?
Right.
So that, I think, in this instance, did you see, I don't know, did the defendant do that in this instance? I was more open hands. Did he do any forearm?
Didn't appear so, no.
You have your palm heel strike. That's a punch with the heel, right? That?
Yes, the meaty part of your palm.
Then you have a straight punch, which is just your normal punch, straight punch, right?
Correct.
You have a combo, the palm heel strike and straight punch.
Yes.
So you do like a punch, heel, punch, you kind of alternate. Is that the idea?
Different arms, like using your body momentum, yes.
There's an angle kick. What's an angle kick?
Striking one of the outside of the leg, there's nerve points there with your bony part of your shin, more or less like a kick across somebody.
Okay. What's a shin kick? Would be a kick specifically right to the shins, right?
Yeah, it's more of a, if you think about stubbing your shin on something, that pain kind of down by your top of your shoe or boot, yes.
And there's a knee strike. So we definitely saw him do a knee strike.
Correct.
So we did one of those things.
He did.
All right. What's a straight arm bar takedown?
It's a takedown option that we teach and train where you extend somebody's arm down and the officer would be in this area and you use body momentum and mechanics to bring them down.
How about iron wrist takedown?
That would be if a handcuff is applied or partially applied, you use the body mechanics of your wrist bent and the mechanical advantage of the handcuff to pull somebody down.
So definitely that one wouldn't apply because it wasn't handcuffed. That's only used in handcuffs.
That's the iron part of it, yes.
Okay. What's a 4-finger wrist lock?
That would be more or less just bending the wrist and kind of an arm weave to bring somebody down.
How about a rear sentry takedown? Because this is a big one. Because a rear sentry takedown under your training, what I've seen, is designed for even if somebody's bigger from you, you can kind of pull them down from behind. Is that a?
Yeah, if somebody the size difference, obviously you'd have to break down their height disadvantage because it's again body mechanic dependent.
The final one's jaw control. Is this, you kind of grab somebody with the face and push them back?
It's more of a cheek hold, and you have to, again, counterbalance just like all of the pressure points because the pressure, if you're not counterbalancing it, they're going to be able to escape that.
Now, do you have your asp on you?
I do.
Can you bring it out and show it to the jury?
I can. I carried mine behind my firearm, and it's an expandable baton.
Okay, can you expand it, please?
I can. So it'll expand to, I don't know, 20 inches or so, 21 inches.
So this would be the impact. That would be an impact weapon we talked about earlier.
Correct.
Okay. It's not just, okay, they got this, swing away, right? You teach them on specific things on how to use that, right?
Yes.
One of those things is open mode to common perineal. What exactly is that?
So as the officer opens that baton or expands it, striking the peroneal nerve runs on the outside of your thigh, kind of if you think of the seam of your pants, for gentlemen anyway. That's the area, kind of above your knee, below your hip.
What's a femoral strike with the axe?
The femoral nerve runs on the inside of your thigh, obviously large artery too, so that would be the target area.
Then you have a radial medial strike?
Nerves on the top of your forearm and the bottom of your forearm.
So you're trained specifically to strike with your asp on the top or bottom of the arm.
Correct.
And then we talked about it. OC spray is part of it.
Yes.
And there's a reason why the OC spray might be effective, but that's another option.
Yes.
We talked about a little bit, when those are kind of your traditional normal ones. Flashlight is kind of a trained thing. If things are going really bad, you let your officers use a flashlight to strike.
It could be used as an impact weapon as opposed to the baton, yes.
Now, you talk all these training records, I kind of put them in front of you. These are all taught basically at the academy, right? Or not the academy, through your training program
Correct.
when they're recruits. And so these training records, use of force, you're recertified each year, right?
Yes.
So these training records we have, the defendant was recertified every year on all these pressure points, ass strikes, whatever, any training that we just went over. He was recertified every year on that.
Correct.
And in fact, he was recertified on February 22nd, maybe a month and a half before this incident.
Yeah, I believe so.
One of the things you also talked about was action versus reaction. That's something you train.
Correct.
So action versus reaction, I want to be clear on this. So hypothetically, you're an expert, so hypothetically, you're responding to a domestic violence call. That's something common for Danvers police, right?
Yes.
So you respond to a domestic violence call, they say, it went out the back. You go out the back. I'm standing there with the gun. You can't shoot me, can you?
You're standing there with a
Just
gun?
standing there, right like this, gun at my side.
There's a lot of factors to it, but it would depend.
Well, what other factors?
Depends on kind of how you're moving, distance of us.
Just said I'm standing. I'm standing here right there. I'm standing, gun pointed, I'm looking at you.
No, I wouldn't shoot in that situation.
Why not?
Because you're pointing at the ground.
Okay? Not posing a threat to you right now, am I?
No, you're a threat.
I'm a threat, but I haven't done anything. Well, if I'm a threat, why can't you shoot me then?
Because I would have you at high ready, my gun pointed at you, giving you loud verbal commands.
Okay? Wonder if I'm running away.
I would be giving you loud verbal commands. So if you have a firearm in your hand, you're running from me, I would still have my gun up and giving you verbal commands and I give chase.
But action beats reaction. I can quick shoot,
Yes.
right? That's what you train.
Yes,
But even in this circumstance, this wasn't a gun. This was a taser, right?
it was.
Taser doesn't do the same thing as a gun. You would agree with me on that, wouldn't you?
Does not function like a firearm, no.
So the one big concern of the tasers is going to disable somebody to have somebody access their gun. That's one of the biggest concerns, right?
Yes.
Part of this, did you know that you knew the defendant before all this happened, correct?
Correct. He worked for me when I was on midnight as a watch commander.
So he was one of your staff,
Yes,
and were you part of his training as well?
I have been over the years, yes.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
Yes. Could we switch the computer to the defense, please? Morning, Captain
Morning.
Siver. All right, I have a few questions for you. You were asked by Mr. Becker about your status as an expert for the defense, right?
Yes.
And were you ever asked by Mr. Becker to provide information about this case?
Only when Detective Sergeant Tubergen asked to meet with me, whatever, last week or 2 weeks ago.
And when he asked to meet with you a few weeks ago, did you meet with him?
I did voluntarily meet with him, yes.
And are you aware of anyone at the Grand Rapids Police Department that was asked for their opinion by Mr. Becker about this case?
I am not.
Are you aware that the prosecutor has had GRPD's policies and training since this incident occurred in 2022?
Yes.
Are you aware if anyone at GRPD was asked about the training and policies?
Just because it's redirect, it's not a cross-exam.
I'm clarifying the information that Mr. Becker has put out there.
And you can clarify without asking leading questions, so,
The-
because you are being all sustained as to that. You need to rephrase.
Has Mr. Becker ever asked you about GRPD training or policies prior to a
Before-
few weeks ago?
Before yesterday, no.
And how much are you getting paid to be an expert for the defense?
I am not.
Were you ever asked to provide a written report, like the paid experts in this case prepared?
I have not.
And you met with Detective Tubergen. Did you meet with Detective Tubergen before this case?
No, the day of the incident, I don't believe Detective Tubergen was present for the round count. I believe it was one of his colleagues.
Sorry, did you meet with Detective Tubergen before the trial?
No. I'm sorry, the 23rd, I think the date, we sat down in my office for an interview, or whatever that date was, recently.
And when you talked to him, did you discuss the nature of your testimony with him?
No.
When you met with Detective Tubergen on April 3rd or whatever it was, did you discuss some of the GRPD policies and training with him?
Just the specific questions he asked in regard to if we had a foot pursuit policy, and then the taser-related, I forget the verbiage in the report there, but about the taser disarming or whatever.
And you provided answers to all of the questions he asked you, right?
I did.
And you were asked some questions about GRPD's policies and trainings about foot pursuits.
I was.
And you helped identify some of the mandatory trainings that GRPD has about foot pursuits, right?
Correct.
And they included the different training scenarios that you train Grand Rapids police officers about foot pursuits,
Yes.
okay? And those are all within the records provided to the prosecution, right?
I would assume. I'm not the records management area of the department, but I would assume so, yes.
Your Honor, do I have permission to approach?
Yes, and with,
This is what has been marked as Defendant's Exhibit II. Captain Siver, do you recognize this document?
I do, yes.
And is this a summary of the GRPD policies and training?
Yes, it is. It's a policies and mandatory training summary chart.
And there are quite a few mandatory trainings that have been provided at this point, right?
Yes, it chronologically starts from when Officer Schurr was hired in 2015, and then chronologically through 2022.
And this, and I guess if we need to bring all of it up, but is it fair to say that this is Exhibit F? This includes some of the pages from that mandatory training, but there are binders worth of training that
Yes.
received, right?
Yes.
And Your Honor, the defense would move to admit Defendant's Exhibit II at this time.
Is this something that's part of GRPD policies?
This is a summary of policies.
That's what I mean. The summary is not in the GRPD policies, right?
I'm not sure I understand your question, sir.
This is, like, when you go into your policy manual, this is not a document created by GRPD, is it?
This is not a document created by GRPD, no.
Who created this document?
I don't know.
You don't know who created this document, so how do you know what it is or where it came from?
I just said I don't know where it came from. I understand the verbiage and the exact quotations that are taken from several of these mandatory training files.
So, but this is not something that's part of the actual policy, that you don't know where it came from, so I don't believe it's admissible, Your Honor. There's not a sufficient foundation.
Your Honor, if you'd like, I will go through the mandatory trainings then. Mr.
sorry, but, so.
I mean, we-
Withdrawing your move to admit, or are you going to have something else you'd like to state?
We'll withdraw the summary chart,
Okay.
and at this time, we'll,
Refer to the training, like you held up a book, was that Exhibit F?
yeah, that was Exhibit E and F, but
But then.
I was referencing Exhibit F, yes, which is already,
1 through 18?
Yes.
Okay, so that's already been admitted.
yes. And I guess, Bob, if you can actually, before you publish it on the screen, can you please pull up the People's Exhibit 31 and go to page 15? Or just go straight to 15? And Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'm handing Captain Siver with what's been previously marked and admitted as the People's Exhibit 31. And Bob, can you go to,
Your Honor, can we approach real quick?
Since the nature of what will be displayed on the screen, I'm instructing media to not shoot the screen. The witness is okay, testimony is okay, but showing what's on the screen would need to be, will not happen. So, okay. And go ahead, Ms. Hamilton, your question about, you had page 15, and handed him page 15, right?
I believe it was, actually, it might be page 14. Unless he, what is your exhibit video? Is it 1901?
Sorry, 19. 129.
All right, sorry, Bob. I don't know exactly what page this is in the People's Exhibit, but this is the same as Defendant's Exhibit F5. Can you pull that one up, please? And that'll be on the first page of that.
F5?
Yes. Which has already been admitted.
And is that what you handed the witness?
It's the same, yeah, it's the same. I just don't know in the People's Exhibit which page it is.
Okay.
And I just used the relevant pages in ours. Okay. And directing your attention to the scenario 1, discussing the foot pursuit. And as part of your, can you explain what this type of scenario is and what it includes?
Yes, so oftentimes in our mandatory training cycles, we have specific objectives or training goals. So, for example, this is 1901, meaning it was 2019, it was the first training cycle of the year. So CEW, ECD, TASER, we're trying to accomplish a specific objective with scenario 1. So many times we build out scenarios that are very scripted, so we could try to limit for safety reasons and to get the response we want, I guess, in short. So this scenario 1 was we set up that the officer is responding to a foot pursuit that another officer called out, and when they arrive, they find the role player, which is acting as the assailant or the suspect, is on top of the officer. So to get a close probe deployment, meaning firing the taser from a close distance with a follow-up, touching the taser to a different point in that body to achieve the electrical circuit or NMI.
And that involved an officer who was also in a solo foot pursuit?
Correct.
And you trained Grand Rapids police officers, including Officer Schurr, on solo foot pursuits. Is that correct?
Correct.
Bob, can you please pull up Exhibit F17? Your Honor, do I have permission to approach?
Yes. Just saying what you're approaching with.
I am approaching with Defendant's Exhibit F16, which has already been admitted into evidence.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm now handing Captain Siver a copy of their unknown risk traffic stop training. And you were asked some questions about unknown risk traffic stops. And Mr. Becker had questioned you about an officer's ability to leave the vehicle. Can you talk about some of the factors that you train officers to look for, which are reflected on page 2 of the PowerPoint? There.
Yes, sorry. So, as the jury can see, just working through things to think about, things to be aware of. What's the nature of the offense? As in, why are you stopping the vehicle? We have what we refer to, the only two variations, unknown risk and high-risk traffic stops. High risk would be a known violent crime has been committed. It's a vehicle that matches the description. There's specific intent, or specific information that leads you down that path, and you have time and resources and all that. Unknown risk is what this incident would be classified as. So understanding why you stopped the vehicle, environmental hazards, meaning, where do you stop the vehicle as geographically or location, any intelligence that's available, type of vehicle. Obviously, like large vans and certain things like that are more dangerous because you can't see inside of them, or if windows are completely tinted, and those kind of factors.
And is that all sorry?
Yes, that was it, sir.
Okay. And is this all based on, is this part of the officer's discretion to determine?
Yes.
And is it usually, do you usually train officers to look for these threat assessments and analyze the person that's directly potentially posing a threat?
Correct. Kind of a concept we talk about is handling one problem at a time, meaning an individual that's out of the car is your first priority. Right? You've got to address that right away, and then work to occupants in the vehicle if be. We specifically train our people to do a quick assessment if they're running by a car, where they'll glance or look and obvious signs of danger. But yes, they have to process all that information.
And in this case, who is the person that was presenting the most risk to Officer Schurr at the time of the stop?
At the time of the stop, the driver was.
Why?
Because he was already out of the vehicle. He had separated from the vehicle. Officer Schurr is still trying to get his radio traffic out, put the vehicle in park, undo his seatbelt if he had it on, and get out of the vehicle.
Bob, could you please go to page 14? Oh, and the middle slide, and scroll. And one of the things that we talked about a little bit yesterday is how you train officers to assess people's risks, or the risk that someone poses. Is that
Yes.
correct? And what are one of those concepts that you train them?
I think we said it yesterday, but if it didn't, historically, most foot pursuits end with a tackle or they give up. It doesn't usually lead down a long, drawn-out, extended struggle or fight with the suspect. So the concept you see on the slide, failure to comply, ask yourself why. What am I missing? What do I not know? Why is this person fighting so hard to not be put in handcuffs or be arrested? So you, again, the action versus reaction, I don't know why. I can't be in their mind. I don't know what they did. I don't know. I obviously know I had an arrest, or specifically if I have an arrest, and why they're fleeing and why they're fighting me so hard.
And Bob, can we pull up Defendant's Exhibit E1, please? And this is the GRPD use of force policy that we spoke about yesterday and that you were asking questions about.
Yes.
And you, Mr. Becker was asking you some questions about OC spray. And Bob, can you go to 9-1.3? So page 3. And then 2B. And what is OC spray considered?
Under our policy, it's under 2, subparagraph B, compliance controls, which lists out soft empty hand techniques, meaning joint locks, wrist locks, pressure points, and then compliance control devices, meaning handcuffs. ASR stands for aerial, it's OC spray. Yeah.
And that's, OC spray is similar to pressure points?
Correct. It's one of our lower levels of force options available.
And Bob, if you could go to the next page, which is 9-1.4, D. What is a taser considered?
That would be an intermediate level of force, along with impact weapon, the baton, those type of things.
And that's is that a higher level of force than OC spray?
Yes.
And once a person tries to disarm an officer of his taser, and they have been fighting over it for over 2.5 minutes, and once the officer makes a decision or is in fear of serious bodily injury, is he entitled to use deadly force?
If the situation is there, yes.
And once the officer makes the decision to use deadly force, is he required to go back down and try every lower level of force?
No.
Why not?
Because it's not reasonable. We keep saying that term, reasonable. It's not reasonable to expect, if I've exhausted other options of force in my escalation and they've been unsuccessful, how could we possibly expect them to go back down that ladder and try again? They've demonstrated that it's been ineffective for a myriad of reasons, but it's been ineffective. Why can't they go? Why should they have to go back to lower levels of force?
Are you aware of the Kent County Prosecutor's Office ever charging a defendant with resisting and obstructing after a foot chase?
I am, yes.
And did the office take the position that the defendant should be let go because the officer created a dangerous situation?
No.
Are you aware of the Kent County Prosecutor's Office deeming that running away?
I'm gonna have to object. This, what the relevance is on every other case that we've charged. We charge thousands of these, and so I don't see what the relevance is on what our decisions are in some unknown cases.
Your Honor, that's a position that this office has taken, that
Which office?
that the Kent County Prosecutor's Office has taken previously. They've charged people for resisting and obstructing for foot pursuits, and the officers have engaged in foot pursuits to catch the person.
The other cases. So I'll sustain based on this, and it's outside the scope of cross as well, so.
He was asking about the foot pursuit policy and whether it's permitted or if there is one.
But you're asking about a different policy of a different office.
Well, I'm asking if it's a crime to run away from the police and if,
Is that what you're asking?
I mean, no, but I'm asking if it's a,
Yeah, so I'm sustaining the objection on the basis of what other cases, because we're not here about those cases. They're not relevant here.
okay. One moment, Your Honor. All right, no further questions.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
And I do see a couple of hands raised on the jury, so I'll have my clerk come and grab those questions from you. are the training simulations from start to finish in real time?
In like the average training scenario, I'm
I
assuming?
guess the context is that we saw the graduation video, for example, that showed a clip.
Yeah, so for,
But how long is the actual training simulation?
yes, Your Honor. So the example, that graduation video that had Officer Schurr's, a snippet of his time, those OC, where we expose them and have them do drills, that's probably roughly a minute and a half to 2 minutes by the time they work through. There'll be usually multiple dummies or stations or areas they have to complete exercises at. So, for example, that one's probably 2 minutes.
And the next is how often are those simulations required during the training?
So the exposure happens while they're new hires, right? Sometimes when you, historically, if you go to become an instructor in that area, you get exposed or sprayed again or multiple times, or if you recertify in that. But for the average officer that isn't an instructor, that just participates in our training cycle, they don't get exposed to taser and pepper spray, but they do reality-based scenarios multiple times through the year on a yearly basis.
And next is, in your opinion, since we're in Grand Rapids, are the GRPD GRPD policies and procedures meant to supersede the generally accepted police policies and procedures?
So that term, I know you've heard it a lot. It can be construed some ways. So our policies and procedures, our training calendars, those the training calendar isn't published publicly, but our policies are publicly published. We are CALIA certified. CALIA is an international organization that accredits agencies. So they do a full review from top to bottom: training, policies, equipment. And I have to submit yearly reports based upon reviews. So they're a 5-year cycle that you're certified for the accreditation. We've been accredited since 2017, which puts us in the top 5% of all agencies in the United States, at least, for that. And then we've also had 2017, I believe it was, the 21st Century Policing. They came in, they did multiple work group meetings with community members, and all that, department members, all that, and reviewed our policies. I think Mr. Becker brought up the exhibit had something from that 21st Century Policing recommendations. So we've had multiple reviews by accredited, national agencies or international accreditation agencies.
Okay, so sounds like you're saying they're not meant to supersede, but.
Correct, and I think, my point with that is those accreditation agencies wouldn't accredit you if your policies were out of norm. So, and again, policies that may, for example, say the Los Angeles Police Department may have a policy, may have a foot pursuit policy. What happens in Los Angeles doesn't equate to Grand Rapids, or doesn't make sense. So we pay attention to regional things much closer than on the national stage, because use of force laws are different in the state of Florida or South Carolina. Practices are different, right? Weather dependent, all these factors. So we have a ton of outside reviews. We've been accredited and reviewed and appraised by these organizations for our willingness to do that and open the doors, more or less.
Ms. Hampton, do you have any follow-up from those responses?
Just a few, Madam. So just to clarify, I think what you're saying here is that GRPD, even though some of those things are factors that are sometimes considered, GRPD policies supersede the national generally accepted police practices as far as what your officers.
Actually, it's leading him. That is not what he said.
Can,
So if you could, I'm going to sustain that because it's not what his response is. And if you could just rephrase your question.
Can you clarify what governs how you evaluate GRPD's police officers' use of force? Whose
By
policies and
our policies.
procedures?
And I would offer our policies do coincide with generally accepted police practices.
And when you say that term, can you define what you mean by that? I mean, that's a very broad term, so what do you mean by that?
Yes, I would point back to the reviews we have by the CALIA, for example, the international organization. They would not offer accreditation to agencies that policies were outside of the norm or generally accepted police practices.
Right. I guess what standards are you evaluating GRPD's officers by? When you're conducting like a use of force evaluation, what do you look at within
One
GRPD?
policy, the training, is it consistent with training? Obviously, state and federal law, which our policies are derived from.
And it's GRPD's policies that are governing what the officer, or how you're evaluating a GRPD officer's conduct, right?
Yes.
One moment, Your Honor. No further questions, Your Honor.
I just want to follow up on the other question in terms of the length of your training. And you talked about the training with the exposure to the OC spray that we saw in the recruit. I guess generally, how long are your dynamic training situations when you do those after they become officers?
Sure. Just an average scenario could be anywhere from 30 seconds to several minutes. It depends on what the intent of the scenario is. But it's also, I want to clarify, it's difficult to recreate physically exhausting scenarios for the risk of injury to the officer and role players.
Yep, thank you.
And I think you touched on this a little yesterday. When you're doing the scenario-based training, like the hood drills you talked about, when the officers are actually fighting with another person, how long are those scenarios?
Those we specifically designed for, depending on the officer's physical ability or fitness level, 30 seconds to a minute and a half, depending on, because the risk of injury skyrockets when people are exhausted and that. So usually we can accomplish what we need to demonstrate that, usually within 30 seconds to a minute and a half.
Yes.
Mr. Becker, any other questions? I do see one hand on the jury, so I'll ask my clerk to come and get that question from you. If you can approach the podium. You can clarify, in your opinion, is deadly force appropriate in situations of active resistance or only in situations of active aggression? You can describe GRPD's policy. and
Yes.
training.
Active resistance, you can't say always, but would most likely not lead to a deadly force incident. Becomes, that it's a fine line between resistance and aggression. So, for example, grabbing a taser would be an aggressive act, and that would raise the level of force greatly. So, hopefully that answers that.
Okay, so is there a policy or training with respect to the appropriateness of deadly force in active resistance or active aggression?
Yes, in our reality-based scenarios, we'll create that position so there's different force options and they understand the difference of active resistance versus active aggression. And that's the whole purpose of why we train the way we do, so they have a conditioned response to those.
Thank you. Sounds any follow-up to that?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Guthrie?
No further questions. Your Honor.
And I don't see any other hands raised. May this witness be excused?
You may, Your Honor. Oh, I'm sorry. These were my.
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're okay with that?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Captain.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And thanks, make call your next witness.